"The ring of Emperor Sapphirus, bring me a good story, and I'll consider giving you a raise," said the boss of Darren Dean, a rookie reporter and a large newspaper in Melbourne. "Like what?" asked Dean. "Something on Emperor Sapphirus, something good," said the editor-in-chief, who was watching the emperor being talked about on television. "Okay, what?" asked Dean. "I don't know." "His health?" "You think of something," said the boss. "How he never talks about his health," said Dean. "Go find out about it, you're a reporter, aren't you?" snapped the boss, chasing Dean out of the office. Later at a press meeting with the emperor at a political summit, Dean stood watching the emperor answering questions from the press. "My emperor, is it true you are going to be at the ball on Tuesday at the Alexander Theatre?" asked a reporter. "I have so many that I don't remember, only my phone diary knows where I go," said the emperor, charmingly waving his mobile phone. "Well, you?" asked the reporter. Sapphirus looked at his phone and said, "It's top secret." The other reporters laughed. It was common knowledge he was to host the event. The reporter who asked the question was a plant. Of course, he was known as the emperor's great-grandson, Lance Alexander Sr. He worked for another paper. "Emperor, how is your health going?" asked Dean. Lance looked oddly at his great-grandfather. "I'm fine." "How are you?" replied the emperor. "I'm good," mumbled back Dean, knowing he was getting nowhere. Then he saw it on the emperor's hand. It was a small black ring. "Is that a smart ring?" asked Dean. "Yes," replied the emperor, smiling, "my grandson gave it to me. It is so amazing." Then it struck Dean what he had to do. He needed to get his hands on that phone, but how to get it? A blind man would see the emperor was well guarded. His chief guard was Lance, no doubt why he was there, thought Dean. Then he thought it was pointless trying to get it from him, and he forgot it. After the meeting of the press, Dean went for lunch at a cafe. The emperor and Lance had apparently had the same idea, and they sat at the table next to him and chatted for a while and left. Dean listened curiously as he sipped coffee and ate. When the emperor left the cafe, something strange happened. Dean noticed the emperor had absent-mindedly forgotten his phone, which he was playing with as he drank. Not an odd thing in a cafe. But Dean saw it and, thinking at first of returning it to him as most people would, then his mind was haunted by what his boss had said about finding out something about the emperor, and he might get a raise, and the smart ring came to his mind. He had health data on the emperor. Dean took the phone and stowed it in his pocket and left the cafe. Later, when he was at home, he sat thinking about what he should do with the phone. It rang with a SMS. He looked at the phone. It said it was from Angela. Dean thought it must be a friend of the emperor. He grew curious who they were. So he tried to read the SMS. To his surprise, the phone was unlocked, so he could just open the SMS app and read his SMSs. Angela only asked him to bring home some milk. Which was odd, the emperor was a widower and was living alone. So this drew in Dean more. He thought the emperor was hiding an affair. He soon found he was right, this woman was his partner. He thought he had a story. On a whim, he thought he'd look at the health apps. When he opened the Smart Ring app, he found a bigger story, of a mystery. "How can the emperor's heart stop and start again?" muttered Dean. He thought he may remove the ring, but realized it was unlikely, it looked too tight to remove easily. That meant he was dying and returning to life, but that, of course, was impossible. Thoughts came to him of a man noted for that happening who had been deposed as an emperor, as a semi-dead man who died and came to life again. The man was the emperor's grandson. Or was he? Both the grandson Blake and the grandfather were noted as time travelers, and both were having affairs with women called Angela. Angela was Blake's wife. Then it struck him. Somehow, they were the same man. He had to be careful, as the man was the king of the Grim Reapers. His son Lance, he supposed, was the necromancer, a serial killer. He had a story which would get him made permanent staff for sure, he thought. He started to write his notes for the story and rang his work and told his boss he had the biggest story ever. When he finished the last draft of the story, he cautiously went to his work with it and the phone. He knew if he was caught he'd end up dead. He knew too much. He walked into his boss's office, thinking he'd been lucky to get that far alive. "What is your story, Darin?" asked the boss, noting Dean's nerves. "The biggest story you'll ever read," said Dean, handing over his manuscript. "It must be by the way you look," said the boss, taking it to read. He read the manuscript and turned pale with shock. "Will you print it?" asked Dean. "No, I can't, they will kill us," stammered back the boss. "What? I did this for you? Are you mad? This is the biggest story. We have the necromancer, and the emperor dead to rights," snapped Dean. "Give him back his phone and forget it, or they'll kill you," the boss pleaded. Dean took back the manuscript and left. Days later, while the emperor danced with Angela, Blake's wife, a man ran at him with a knife to kill the emperor and prove him immortal. The man knew he was dead if he didn't try to kill him too. The emperor cried in pain. "I have you, traitor," whispered Dean, who blinked and dropped dead with a knife in his back. "Are you all right?" asked Lance, who threw the knife at Dean. "Flesh wound," said the emperor. The police found at the home of Dean a phone which disappeared, thought stolen, and a lot of notes and stories accusing the emperor of being his grandson. He was raving, and he lost his mind and was trying to kill the emperor because of it. His boss said nothing of their meeting for fear of his life. The phone had indeed been stolen. It was by the coroner Blake, who returned it to his grandfather, who destroyed the ring and deleted the app.